case you weren't aware, Steven Crowder, I guess we should go through from step one. In my opinion, this all started when a former employee of his named Dave Landau was doing an interview and said some really negative stuff about him, like he's a bad boss and he can't stand when people are funnier than him and he's just kind of a tyrant and just an ass at work. And oh yeah, also he doesn't really offer the best contracts, which is super ironic considering he made a big deal about the Daily Wire offering bad contracts, which strangely enough, no ex-Daily Wire employee has ever complained about their treatment at Daily Wire, but multiple ex-Steven Crowder employees have complained about it. So it was a little hot for him. And in my opinion, he came out with a kind of a deflection video where he talked about how he's going through a divorce and people are trying to hold it over his head, maybe even extort him. And in this video where he claims that people are sort of quasi extorting him, he mentioned Candace Owens and how months ago she implied that she knew what was going wrong with Crowder's life and we should pray for him or something. And he felt that was indicative of her kind of threatening that she might say something. In my opinion, I don't buy that at all. First of all, if she would have said something, she would have said it back then, probably when the tension between Daily Wire and Crowder was super hot. It is over now. Nobody's talking about it anymore. Why would she even bring that up? Number two, I don't think she would be extorting him for just straight up money because she makes plenty of money and that would be a really bad look for the Daily Wire. And the Daily Wire makes plenty of money. So they're probably not thinking that it would be a good idea to extort people for a little extra income. Right? So, and the other thing is, why weren't you talking about this? If you're really that upset, why weren't you addressing it right then, again, when everything was super hot? If you were really worried that she was going to do something to you. So based on the timing, I believe it's related to Dave Landau. And you remember when Kevin Spacey was caught up in his whole Me Too and people were suing him and for sexual harassment and things like that. And then he said, oh, yeah, I'm innocent. Oh, by the way, I want to let you know I choose to live my life as a gay man now. Like, why are you talking about that now? First of all, everybody who knows anything knows they already knew you're gay. Obviously, you're just trying to divert our attention to something else at this point, to run cover for your bad press. So I think that's what Crowder was pulling off in this instance. Okay, so in response to that, Candace Owens, she comes out with a video where she talks about a home ring video that was released by a guy named Yashar Ali on Twitter. And it captured an argument between Crowder and his wife in 2021, right before they're about to get a divorce, I'm guessing. And her take on it was, what was the title of her video? Steven Crowder's a monster, prove me wrong, or something like that, right? And she was, of course, very negative about him. And yeah, I get it. She is still sour about the whole fallout between Daily Wire and Crowder. And I don't doubt that given an opportunity, she would gladly destroy him. And if, he makes a statement about extortion, includes her name, that creates an opening. This Yashar Ali posts this video. Where did he get it? I'm sure it's from the wife, because why would Steven Crowder give him the video? Candace Owens can go ahead and use this opportunity to lay into Steven Crowder, and that's exactly what she did. And that's where we're at. Now everybody has to decide based on what they know of the background and of what they saw in the video. What is their opinion of Steven Crowder? What is their opinion of Candace Owens? And it's really interesting because it's created quite a schism, even in conservative circles. This is not even a right-left thing, but in conservative circles, there's people who think, wow, this video proves that Steven Crowder is a jerk and an asshole, and you should never talk to women like that, blah, blah, blah. And there's other people in conservative circles.
It seems like most of the comments that I see are like that. Maybe
for you, yeah. But I see a lot of people who are also kind of on the red pill, like in the red pill spaces, like Fresh and Fit and the Andrew Tates of the world, and they are siding more with, okay, this is how relationships work, and this is not that big of a deal, and this is not necessarily toxic masculinity or abuse or anything like that. So they are pushing back against that, and they are also asking some pointed questions like, well, this is awfully convenient timing for Candace and Yashar Ali and the wife, and also why is there a minute edited out of the video, which is, why does the video cut before a certain point? So there are Fair
I didn't
questions.
even notice that.
Right.
Is it like in the middle of the video?
There's a minute that's cut from the middle of the video, and of course it ends in a weird place. We don't see them stop talking, so that's a fair question too, right? Edits matter. Edits can change the character of the thing you're watching quite a bit. We all know that to be true.
Yeah, completely. They
And
can.
also ask who is making the edit. All these questions do matter. So I'm not going to say it's 50-50 split, but I'm seeing enough people on both sides of this argument. And it's created quite a divide. When the whole Crowder Daily Wire thing came down, I sided with Daily Wire. I just felt like Crowder was just manufacturing this big controversy and complaining about a contract that didn't even affect him. He could just say no, and he was just being disingenuous when he's saying, "I care about the next generation of content creators." It seems particularly disingenuous now that we know he doesn't necessarily treat the next generation that well either. So I'm not in the tank for Crowder by any means, but when this came out, my take was that it was just pretty much an argument between a married couple. Was it pretty to look at? Was it kind of ugly to witness? Yeah, it was. But what arguments are pleasant to look at? I would argue practically none of them, right? Most of them get pretty ugly as long as, there's no physical violence. And you could say, well, you could mentally abuse people and verbally abuse people. Yes, you can, but that would require you to document like a pattern of behavior that goes way longer than this video that we saw. We don't know if it's a one-off. We don't know if this represents a pattern of behavior. We don't know what that pattern looks like. We don't know what she looks like on her bad days or whatever. We don't even really know all the details about what this argument was about. It was something about was irritated. She didn't do some chores before he got there and therefore didn't want to let her take the car to go shopping or something like that, right? And told her she needed to walk the dog or something before she did that. It's like, okay, it sounds minor and irrelevant to have an argument about that, but hey, if you've ever been in a relationship, you know that a lot of arguments are about minor things and they just escalate. And maybe they are drawing from some resentment built on something in the past, which, we can't discern in a 3-minute clip. I didn't think it was abuse based on what I saw. And I didn't think that people who said, well, he gets to tell her where she can go and when she can go do things, and that's de facto abuse, mental abuse, because he controls certain things. And I just don't agree with that either. I just think that shows that they have a relationship that has a very hierarchical nature, which I believe is an efficient way for any organizational unit to run. And not all marriages have to run that way. I'm not saying that. People can have a more egalitarian marriage, but I just don't find that efficient. And if people want to run their marriage on very clear hierarchy, I don't think that's essentially abuse. I think that's just the way they choose to run their marriage, And I don't even think that it has to be necessarily a man who's in charge. You look at Meghan Markle, she's the boss of her marriage, and it probably runs more efficiently because she's the boss of her marriage. So I don't believe there's any evidence that this was mental or verbal abuse. And that's not to say that I don't think it was a bad look for him in this instance. It seemed like he was blowing things out of proportion. And that's not to say that he's a good husband. I don't know. Again, we saw 3 minutes. He could be even worse off these 3 minutes. We don't know. Or he could be a lot better. We don't know. That's my take on it. And I think that a lot of people who wanted to be super outraged, they were inclined to dislike Crowder, right? And I think I really
dislike Crowder.
Right. So that might be influencing some people to say, oh yeah, he must be. It proves that he's the asshole I always knew he was. Like, well, it's one data point, which doesn't do him any favors. The other interesting thing I found is that there's this sort of gap that is usually papered over between conservative women and conservative men. And the thing I observe is that a lot of quote unquote conservative women still have a pretty sort of egalitarian view of how marriages should be. They just think it's a pure partnership and blah, blah, blah. And they really bristle at what a patriarchal, hierarchical relationship might look like, where the man just tells a woman what to do. And I find that interesting because if you're more conservative, and it doesn't mean you have to be, but generally you would think that you would be copacetic with patriarchal, hierarchical marriages where the man is in charge, right? Because that's traditionally like how people view conservative marriages, right? Whereas people think a liberal marriage would be more egalitarian and they're just equal partners. And again, I'm not saying that one way is morally right and the other way is morally wrong. I don't take like a religious viewpoint of this as like, well, God said I should be in charge of my household. No, I do think that all organizational units are more efficient with hierarchy. But if you want your family unit to be less efficient because you think it just suits you two better, that's fine.
But suboptimal maybe for efficiency, but maybe it's, optimizing for something else.
Potentially. I'm only talking about efficiency, like saving time and money and energy. Hierarchy always is more efficient in that regard. As far as I can see, when it comes to football teams, small businesses, corporations, everything, militaries,
I mean,
hierarchies are more efficient.
Yeah, I think hierarchy seems to be more efficient as a default. I feel like the efficiency really comes from an agreement of how to resolve disputes or whatever, right? Or it's like with hierarchy, it basically says there's a default stance for any kind of dispute, which is
right.
If you take like taking the patriarchal approach, then it's like whatever the man says,
Right.
that's how you resolve the dispute, right? But you could have some other agreement beforehand, which could just be an as equally effective way to resolve a dispute. Maybe you say, hey, we're gonna flip a coin, like that would be efficient as well, right?
I think it would, but then even flipping a coin would be a form of hierarchy, wouldn't it? Because it would be essentially letting one person have the final say. And there's another thing that I should point out. Hierarchies can shift even within the same relationship. Like, let's say I know cooking better, or decorating better. I know finances better, whatever it is. And in that person's sphere of expertise, there's deference there. But yeah, you're right. The inefficiencies come from being unable to deal with, okay, what happens if we don't agree? We don't agree where to eat. We don't agree how to spend our life savings, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
If you have no system, then yes, that's what I'm talking about when there's inefficiency and waste. But thus far, I'm not sure that anyone's come up with a more effective system to resolve those differences than hierarchy. Then the buck's got to stop somewhere. I have seen corporations try to create a non-hierarchical system where, decisions ultimately still get made, but it really hurt my brain to just look at the charts and the lines they draw and the way they picture these systems of decision making, and I couldn't even understand it.
Well, this seems like another role that ChatGPT can fill.
Perhaps.
Marital dispute
Just
arbiter.
ask ChatGPT, right? But then that's still hierarchy because then ChatGPT is in charge, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, that's not to say that this is a moral necessity that you be as efficient and optimal as possible. You want to run a partnership that's equal, fine. I think it's inefficient. I think I have solid foundation to say it's inefficient, but people don't have to live their lives efficiently all the time, That's my take from it. It revealed interesting divisions between women who I wouldn't say supposedly. They say they're conservative, and I'm not saying they're lying, but they do have beliefs that one wouldn't think that are so conservative. Like thinking that men and women are just partners, I don't think is a very conservative viewpoint. I think that most people think conservatives would defer to men in a family unit. That's not even to say that they're wrong. Maybe this is just the way that the conservative side has to evolve to fit into the 21st century and be successful, because we just live in a world where women, they have more influence, they have more leverage. It's not the 1800s, They make more money, they're better educated. So maybe this is just the world we have to adapt to.
I mean, you've been in the politics game a lot longer than me, and I think maybe some of these women that you're referring to are much younger, right?
I think so. And so they've never lived in a world where this idea that a woman defers to a man, not even whether or not it's good or bad or moral, it doesn't even exist. Like they don't see it in their home life. They don't see it in media for sure. Every marriage in media is a partnership, or maybe even the woman telling the man what to do. They don't have any experience with this. They don't watch Leave It to Beaver, right? And when Steven Crowder is acting in a way that implies that, no, I'm the boss in this relationship, I tell you what to do, that is automatically toxic, abusive, et cetera, because it's just so foreign.
The thing that I really, that kind of I couldn't stand was even in this clip that's edited, obviously, to make the wife paint the wife in as favorable picture as possible. Nobody's calling her out on the whole, or maybe very few people are calling her out on the whole, I love you, Stephen, or whatever
Well,
she
some of the
says. And
red
it's
pill
just like,
guys called her out on it. They said that it's clear it's a tactical on her part or something. She knows the cameras.
yeah, that just reminds me of those Facebook gratitude posts that you talk about all the time, where it's just like it takes no effort to post one of these. I don't know. You forward me these all the time.
Oh yeah, there's like a black and white pictures of hands holding or something.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay,
Stuff like that.
all right.
And I just feel that it's such an empty expression.
Yeah,
Maybe for
it's
if somebody,
slacktivism, kind of.
it could sort of depend on the person. I mean, if you just constantly just saying, "Oh, I love you," or whatever, and then actions matter so much more than words.
Right,
That's
right,
what it boils down to. It takes no effort to say "I love you," but it takes a lot more effort to, for
right.
example, cook a meal or something.
I can't side against Crowder on this one, and I think that yeah, I usually I'm not against Candace either, but she's clearly just using this to destroy him. Calling a guy a monster for this clip, that's hyperbole. I don't think she believes it. I think she's intelligent enough to know that there's a difference between a guy who is a jerk when arguing with his wife and people who are mass murderers or whatever, right? And you can say, wow, that's an extreme place to go. Like, but when you use the word monster, that is an extreme word. You didn't say he's an asshole. If you just said, oh, he's an asshole, okay, I can get behind that, right? Even if it's a 3-minute clip, and even if we don't know how he treats his wife like the other 99.9% of the time, sure, maybe we can call him an asshole.
I sort of feel like that she actually believes it, and it's because like we were saying earlier, she's younger, and I think she probably
Yeah, that could be true. Yeah.
she probably strongly rejects this patriarchal
Yeah, it's
idea.
possible. I remember she just less than 10 years ago, she was a leftist, right? She had all the leftist ideas, you
I didn't
know?
know that.
She was one of those, oh, I'm an attractive young woman and I just discovered the red pill and my eyes are opened. And that was her. And on top of that being black, oh, that was a real winning formula. And she
Yeah, yeah,
skyrocketed in popularity.
yeah.
And for a long time, I thought she was just a grifter. I no longer think she's a grifter. I think she believes pretty much what she says. But I
Hmm.
think she had to grow into it. I think she was just grifting at the start. She was a leftist, and she got into conflict with some other leftists. I won't get into it, but they tried to cancel her. And she said, "Well, this side kind of sucks." And she said that out loud, and people on the right embraced her. And being
Hmm.
because people on the right embrace anybody who says the left sucks, even like
Yeah,
for 5 seconds, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So like, the rest of your life could be, in Antifa or whatever. But if you just say something bad about the left right now, you're in. Good or bad, that's the way it is. So then she was welcome. And then, of course, she was then encouraged to say things that resonated with her new friends and fans. And there's a feedback loop. The more you say things and the more you're positively rewarded for them, even if you didn't really, really buy into it at the beginning, you start to buy into it because there's a psychological positive feedback loop.
I think her video was just her speaking as a woman.
At the end of the day, Crowder won't be too hurt by this. He still makes good content and he has a lot of his fans. So I also think it's kind of unseemly for a lot of the really hardcore red pill guys. When I say red pill, I mean when it comes to male female dynamics, right? Because if you're not aware, the hardcore red pill guys like Andrew Tate, they and Fresh and Fit, they even did a video about Crowder. Their problem with people like Crowder,
Wait,
and
wait. Can you really call Fresh and Fit like hardcore red pill? Like, aren't they kind of a scam?
no, let's just call them hardcore red pill for the sake of this discussion, because
Okay.
they say all the talking points that are associated. Okay,
Okay.
if you don't think they believe it, that's another discussion. But their talking points are the red
It's
pill,
not that they believe it or not, but do they live it? I guess is what.
right? Irrelevant for this discussion. But their talking points are what you call prototypical red pill. And so they made a video about Crowder, and the gist of their video was, see, the red pill is way better than traditional conservatism. Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, right? They extol the values of marriage and about how you can find a good woman and et cetera, et cetera. The Fresh and Fit red pill, that side, talk about how the West is totally lost. All women here are whores. Just sleep around with as many women as you can. They're just looking for hot guys who have money, and you just you have to become a hot guy who has money and just sleep around. If you do finally want to get married and have kids, you have to go to a foreign country, preferably a Muslim country, right? So that's their side of it. And then, of course, when Steven Crowder, his marriage failed, it was an opportunity for them to say, traditional conservatism is leading you down the wrong path, especially since the family courts favor women in this country, which I agree with. I agree the family courts are fucked up and they have antiquated rules that basically abuse men. But this was an opportunity for that red pill sector to dunk on them, and I think that's pretty unseemly and unfounded. Just because this one guy's marriage failed doesn't mean that traditional conservatism is quote unquote wrong. Okay, first of all, number one,
okay, it's total selection bias. I mean, and also I feel like if you're in the spotlight, this kind of thing probably has a higher chance of happening to you. So I feel like it's totally
right. If you're a rich guy already, of course you're more likely to run into gold diggers and stuff like that, right? Yeah. And if you run a podcast in Miami, just times this like 1,000, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. If you're a rapper, if you're an athlete, of course the women you run into. If you only try to meet women on Instagram, all of these things are a selection bias and will lead you to believe that all women are whores. But the number one problem I have with that sector of the red pill is if you're a person who has any concern for the future of this country and the future of society, then your concerns have to be larger than just, oh my God, make sure I don't get screwed in family court and all women are whores and I'll just, go to a foreign country. Like, okay, yes, that probably will solve the problem for yourself. If you can do that. By the way, not all guys can even become high value and be rich. So you're not even offering solutions for the vast majority of men. The vast majority of men have to stay in this country and figure it out here. It's in that context that traditional conservatism does have values because we have to figure out how to make this country work, how to make this society work. And that's not living life like, the fresh and fit playboy high value men. If every guy lived like that, or if every guy just strove to become one of those guys and failing that, then what? Just be an incel or watch porn? The West really is lost. It's just going to head down the shitter immediately, right? And it probably even is just lost. I wouldn't even argue with them there. It's probably too far gone, right? However, if you are of the viewpoint that it's not too far gone and you want to help save it, then I would definitely argue that traditional conservatism is the way to save it, not fucking Miami hoes and just trying to make as much money as you can. And when you actually want to have kids, just jet out of this country. Like, that's not any way to save this country, is it? No.
So I can't remember where, but I feel like as part of this, we're following this little saga. I read somewhere that Crowder has complained about no fault, or did he talk about it specifically?
He did. He complained about how it's no fault divorce. Yeah.
In Texas, right?
Well, that's pretty much everywhere in this country, right?
So what's your opinion on no fault divorce?
I don't think no fault divorce should exist.
And why is that?
Well, marriage is a marriage contract, right? Is there another contract where there's just no, I don't feel like it anymore. I don't think there is, right?
Exactly.
There needs to be like a clause where somebody's at fault, and then the contract can be broken.
Yeah, that I think that makes logical sense. I mean, otherwise, what is even the point of signing the contract?
Right.
I mean, and what are you like?
And it makes sense.
What's the promise exactly?
For the good of society, I want to incentivize people to try to make their marriage work.
Yeah.
I understand that sometimes it's impossible, but that's why we have fault divorce, right? I want you to try to make it work. And that's good for society. And I would argue it's probably good for you at the end of the day. So I think that laws and the way we handle contracts, if they A, benefit society, and B, even benefit the individual in that contract, then that's a good way to go about it.
I mean, what's the Steelman argument for no fault divorce? Is it because people were finding it hard to prove abuse or something like that?
That's one. Like sometimes a person wanted a divorce but couldn't quite reach that threshold, right? The other steel man argument, I guess maybe is that, well, in a world where we don't have no fault divorce, people just won't get married then, and then you won't really achieve what you're trying to achieve anyway. I kind
That's
of
it. Well, that's a pretty interesting argument.
I think that is a pretty persuasive argument. Probably less
Yeah.
people will get married if we eliminate no fault divorce. So the problem ultimately then comes down to, well, it's just the culture. And so yeah, probably that is true. Culture is at the root of the problem. Almost 90% of the time, the problem is culture. So
Yeah.
how to fix it, I don't know.